Good morning, everybody. My name is Deborah Gross. I'm the City Councilwoman for District 7 and the Chair of Intergovernmental Affairs for Pittsburgh City Council. You are joining us with the reconvened budget hearings for the 2021 budget. Today, we're going to be doing the Pittsburgh Housing Authority, Pittsburgh Parking Authority, and the Sports and Exhibition Authority. And actually Stadium Authority, they're combined together. And I am going to introduce next Bill Urbanek, who's our City Council Finance Director. He's going to give us an overview of, I think, all three authorities. And then we'll start with the Pittsburgh Housing Authority. Mr. Urbanek.
Yes. First, the Housing Authority. The Housing Authority of the City of Pittsburgh is a municipal corporation formed under the United States Housing Act of 1937. It's charged with providing decent, affordable housing for low-income persons. The Housing Authority provides publicly assisted housing comprised of traditional public housing, scattered site housing, and housing choice vouchers. They currently house more than 20,000 Pittsburghers, manage more than 4,000 public housing units, and provide oversight of an additional 900 mixed finance units. The authority's purpose is to develop and make available affordable, safe housing and help families achieve the independence they strive for. Reverend Burgess is the council representative that sits on the Housing Authority Board. And with that, let's get this one up. Okay, budgetary highlights on how it affects the 2021 budget in the city. The Housing Authority reimburses the city for services, including $832,000 in 2021 reimbursements for the 412 Boulevard of the Allies bond. Also another $1.5 million for Northview Heights Police, housed in the Public Safety Department. Additionally, the majority of the nonprofit payment for services, $438,000 revenue line item, is not payments from the city's multi-billion-dollar institutions of purely public charity, but rather payments from the Housing Authority for properties they have taken off the tax rolls. Example of these include those approved by council at the end of 2018 for Kelly Hamilton Homes, Allegheny Dwelling Phase 1, Northview Mid-Rise, and the Glen Hazel Rental Assistance Demonstration Housing Development. Would you like me to read them all, or do you want to take them separately?
Thank you for asking. I had said you would read them all, but maybe we should just wait since it would be confusing to do all three. We'd forget what you just said. So with that introduction, I will hand it over to the guests that we have today for the Pittsburgh Housing Authority. Would you like to all introduce yourselves first, since our viewers can see all of you on screen? Why don't you go through and introduce yourselves first, and then we'll let you begin your presentation.
Okay, my name is Castor Binion. I am the Executive Director of the Housing Authority of the City of Pittsburgh. And I want to start introducing my staff. First, we start with our CFO, Bernie. Introduce yourself.
Morning, this is Bernie McGinley, the Chief Financial Officer at the Housing Authority.
Introduce your staff.
Yes, I have Mr. Andrew Tenney, our controller, and Mr. Ryan Cassidy, our budget manager.
Okay, and we also have Monique Pierce, who is the Chief Development Officer. So going to talk about the Housing Authority, our budget for this year is 186. Screen disappeared. $186 million. I just let you know that the Housing Authority budget consists of developments in different communities throughout the city. We also use it for administration fee, construction, maintenance, protective services. As he said before, we provide the police department $1.5 million at a site that we have at Northview. We continue to work with community groups especially grassroots groups, as far as working with them in their communities to development opportunities for affordable housing in their community. The Housing Authority, we probably have affordable housing throughout the city, almost in every community. That consists of a housing choice voucher program, which is over 5,600 vouchers or families, and then over 4,000 public housing units, which consists of public housing units and mixed finance developments. This year, we will look at adding additional units to the city. Our primary goal is to work with grassroots and community organizations to receive community feedback as the Housing Authority, the URA, the foundations, the City of Pittsburgh works with these groups to ensure that what we put in their community as affordable housing is an opportunity for everyone. A spinoff from affordable housing, as we aggressively do developments throughout the city, lots of opportunities as far as businesses, developers, CDCs, religious groups, and also the opportunity for people to improve as far as jobs. And as we bring contractors in, we have Section 3 program, which is available for residents. And just add more with the developments, we also have a home ownership program that we are looking to expand next year to about 50 families. And we work with the URA and foundations and banks to make that happen. Monique, can you give a short update type of activities that we are looking at for 2021?
Sorry, Monique, you're muted.
Can everyone hear me now? All right. Hello. Thank you for that, Mr. Binion. Yes. So the Modernization and Development Department has under its umbrella a number of programs or applications of the funding that we receive through our PBV gap financing program. We're looking forward within the next number of 18 or approximately 18 months to seeing a number of projects move forward across the city, as Mr. Binion indicated, everything from the Middle Hill, Ferrywood, Uptown, Hazelwood, Homewood South. There are a number of neighborhoods that have projects that will be going in the ground through our, who've been supported through our PBV gap financing program, as well as our traditional public housing stock, that physical what I call a physical plan across the city will be receiving any number of improvements, everything from roofs to entryways to community spaces, all of these things to make our housing safe, secure, and then also provide space for activities as well for residents to make it not just a physical structure, but a home where people can enjoy themselves and have resources available to them.
Okay, thank you. Bernie, could you give a quick summary on how we receive our funds, and as far as from the federal government, foundations, and money that we generate?
Yes. Most of our money comes directly from HUD under the two major programs, the low income public housing and the housing choice voucher / Section 8. That's probably 99% of our income. However, we do utilize our developments to spin off some money as well back to the Housing Authority, which we have as program income. We do have a couple small grants from HUD, resident opportunity grants, as well as a yearly capital fund grant, which averages approximately 10 million. And then we do apply for small boutique grants from time to time, which, you know, sometimes is the CDBG and other ones as well. And that's most of the funding.
So I would say that this housing authority work with partners throughout the city to ensure we have every opportunity to create and sustain affordable housing in the city of Pittsburgh. We always look at ways to work with our partners to maximize our money, our critical mass as Team Pittsburgh to provide opportunities and homes for residents of the city of Pittsburgh. Are there any questions?
Yes, I'm pretty sure there's going to be questions. I wanted to state for the record that we're joined, and I'm actually I can't see everybody's camera on. I know we're joined by Council President Teresa Smith, Councilman Anthony Coghill, Councilman Bobby Wilson, Councilman Bruce Kraus, and Councilwoman Erica Strasburger. I didn't see the order.
Councilwoman, I have questions if you have.
Okay. Would other council members mind if I go first to President Smith? Is that okay? All right, President Smith, we can hear you.
Thank you, Councilwoman, and thank you for hosting this. I just want to first thank the Housing Authority for their work that they're going to be doing in Ferrywood. It's an area that has been waiting a long time for some of the attention that they really had taken away from them back when they were flooded, and a lot of families were displaced, and it caused a lot of problems, as you know, on our side of town. And I also want to acknowledge for coming to the meetings and Sheridan and making sure that he's making people feel more comfortable with Housing Authority in our area. But I do want to say I have a concern when I hear you mention that you're working across the city with people in terms of affordable housing. And I've heard you mentioned everyone, but I didn't hear you mention City Council. And I want to make sure, because I think that what I've noticed is a pattern over the years of City Council being left out or ignored, and a lot of the work being done in the city. For me, I'm fortunate because I go to the administration if I have a concern or question, but I think that there's sometimes departments in the city, not just the authorities and whatever, that don't necessarily include the council member. We were elected to represent all of the community, not just one part and not just one group and not just one faction. So I just want to say that for my standpoint, I want to make sure City Council was included in whatever plans and whatever you're doing in any one of our neighborhoods. And I do want to say that you have been working with me, but I really have not heard from Housing Authority lately. And so I'd like to make sure that we're staying in touch and doing more, and we're working together on what it is our districts want. Because some people in some neighborhoods want affordable housing, and some are saying we have an overabundance. And you know, in our district, we have an overabundance of affordable, but not always habitable housing. So I want to make sure that we're working on fixing up some of those properties, but at the same time, working with our residents for what they want and what they envision for their neighborhoods.
Thank you. And, we'll continue to work and to shore up our relationship with City Council. Most of the City Council people have me on speed dial, but I think that, as you know, we always want to be transparent. We always want to have open communications, and our imagination includes everyone, because the great imagination that you and I talk about over years, it takes years to get there, but we finally look like we're getting in that direction, because you and I have been working for years on your district.
Since you've been there, I want to be honest. I mean, since you've been there, I've had a much better relationship with housing. But I do want to say that we do have some concerns still, and that I do see Knowledge addressing them the best that he can, and I want to thank him for that. Thank you for sending him to the meetings. And I want to thank your team, but I also want to make sure that council was always part of the equation. I sometimes, I see people that say that they, can speak for a community, and they may know a ton of people on one side of town, but they don't know anybody else, so, they're not speaking for the community. So that's why I always want to make sure that council's a part of the equation.
Okay, thank you for that.
No, thank you. Thank you for everything you do. Be safe.
Is that all you have, President Smith?
That's it for now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Would the other members correct me if I'm wrong? The first person I saw on was Councilman Coghill. He's setting the early bird record this week, or last week too. Were you the first on, Councilman?
I don't
So
think so.
we
I don't
generally
think I
go
was
in
today.
order. Councilwoman Strasburger, I saw you early on as well. Were you first? Would either of you have questions? You want to
I
figure out
like
who
that
wants to finish?
policy, but I will cede to Councilwoman Strasburger. I don't believe I was the first one today, but
Generally,
maybe-
our protocol is to go in like order of who like walked into chambers first, right, in the session. So that's why I was trying to figure out, I couldn't see everyone on Zoom. I didn't have my screen set up correctly. So Councilwoman Strasburger, do you have any questions for the Housing Authority?
I don't. Thank you very much for being here and for your presentation.
Thank you.
Councilman Coghill, I'll take you next then.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gross, and thank you for hosting the meeting this morning and this afternoon, I guess, as well. Yeah, I just wanted to touch base, Mr. Binion, on a couple of things. Section 8 vouchers.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about those. I mean, as far as, so I was in Carrick a long time ago. In the neighborhood, they really wanted to know how many vouchers they had in the neighborhood. And at the time, this was a couple of years ago, I had a hard time getting that figure. Is that something that you have?
Yes, we have a report we can send out to you next week. It depicts in a cluster, not addresses, a cluster where the housing choice vouchers, Section 8 programs throughout the city. We can get that out to you. We normally do analysis once a year.
So I'll be able to see neighborhood to neighborhood.
Neighborhood to comparison. Sometimes what happens when we put the city council names on there, it might be some crossovers. I mean, I know you understand that, but you will get a general picture throughout the city where the concentration of housing choice vouchers is at and where it's not at. But I would say that every part of the city does have housing choice voucher residents.
And are you limited to the amount you can?
No, it's not. The residents have choice, and they take the voucher and they find a landlord who will lease to them, and that could be anywhere in the city.
Right. So it's an unlimited number.
Yeah, it's not constrained by district.
Okay. And of your budget, $186 million is what percentage of that roughly goes to, say, salary? Do we have those figures?
Oh yeah, Bernie.
Righty. So I don't have the printout, but generally admin is 38 million of that. And that includes the salaries and other contracts, but salaries and benefits for our administrative people, our maintenance folks, our tenant service folks, and our protective service folks.
It is roughly 20%.
20%. Okay.
Okay. So of that 80%, that's really, you're taking, or of say 150 million roughly, is money actually going into the neighborhood, whether it be for a housing development or, vouchers for, new roofs, things of that nature?
Yes, what I would say is we one of those housing authority. We don't sit on money just to be sitting on money. What we do is all our dollars that we have, every penny that we can come up with go towards affordable housing or going back and for sustainability of houses that we already have. Our push is that we have a great need in this city for affordable housing, especially for the working poor. And we are working hard to try to provide those opportunity and housing for residents of the city of Pittsburgh. So it's not like we sit around on money. All our money goes towards providing opportunities and affordable housing, home ownership, self-sufficiency programs, and youth programs. And I think the one thing we did big this year didn't go to housing, but we realized the city of Pittsburgh schools did not have enough resources to accommodate our kids, public housing kids, in some Section 8 with computers and internet. So we work with Comcast and also the school board, and we was able to provide computers, for kids living in housing, and also internet, working with Comcast. So.
No, that's great. I mean, if I could get figures for Section 8 as to how many per neighborhood in my district, I would really appreciate that. I think it's a good number to have. And my last question is, of the 5,600 vouchers that you've received, do you break that down by what parts of the city as well?
No, it's a choice. We give a resident a voucher and they find a place anywhere in the city. And some of them, they take the voucher and they go to Allegheny County outside the city.
So the 5,600 vouchers are for Section 8 housing?
Yeah, and then that could consist of vouchers or project based. What I mean by project based, you could look at out there at Larmer, some that is I would consider project based. So you look up on the hill, all that new stuff that we build throughout the city. I know you have seen it. Most of that they are considered project based vouchers. That means that the unit, the subsidy come with the unit, and then we have the individual vouchers where the residents can go anywhere in the city. So that combination vouchers for residents and also for concrete housing for residents.
Okay, listen, thanks for being here. That's it, for Councilwoman Gross. I'll throw it back to you.
Okay, we will, that data that you asked for, we will send that out to all the council members. Knowledge will get that to you prior after Thanksgiving. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Binion. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you as well. Next, we have Councilman Wilson, I believe I saw next, if you have any questions.
Yeah, I believe I just have one question. Might have a couple parts to it, but
Okay.
since the pandemic has started, and since the onset of COVID-19, have you seen an increased, I guess I would say, demand for the affordable housing that you provide?
Oh, yes. We always see in demand, but I think there is an increase. And it took us, as you know, when COVID first was introduced to us, everybody had to adjust their work priorities. We had to quickly move to a electronic digital platform. We had to change a whole lot of stuff. At the same time, we could not meet with residents. And so we had to create mechanisms so that they can send data to us and we can process them. Now, as far as our residents, initially, what we found out that when COVID first came, most of our residents continued to work because most of our residents are in the service community. Then we was able to keep residents from being evicted. As you know, the law is out there; you can't do it till December. But we have in public housing also Section 8. If you lose your job, your rent is adjusted to your lost income. So we have worked with residents as far as on COVID-19. We have provide food. We have eradicated food in public housing, working with 412. We provide masks for our residents, and we continue to do work orders with our staff who wears the PPE. So yes, there's an increase, but we already had a demand probably over 10,000 prior to the COVID.
And do you have any trouble filling, getting people to the housing? How long is the list? How long is the wait list right now?
Okay, the Section 8 wait list is 9,000, and we are processing that list. And public housing based, I think around about 5,000 or 6,000. So now we got all our systems in place. So we will be accelerating moving people in, in the next couple of months.
You said approximately 9,000 on the wait list, you said?
Yeah, 9,000 for the Section 8 housing choice voucher.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the traditional public housing. I believe that's around about 6,000.
And so you said technology, but are there other barriers? Are there landlords that don't qualify for the voucher program?
Well, only thing a landlord needs to do is, pay the taxes. That's one. And two is they give us the information so we can process it. And they have to pass our inspection, make sure that the house is safe. And then you become a available landlord. We are also working with URA. And also we started a unique program that will give opportunity to landlords, new landlords, where they can get a loan from the Housing Authority or URA to bring additional new units, affordable housing units online. That program just kicking off, and we expect to have big things to happen with that in 2021.
Do you, is that just something that the URA is doing on their own, or is that something that we are gonna help out on the city side with our budget and supplement some of that?
I believe the URA is using the housing fund, and we are using the subsidies that we have from the U.S. government. But what I want to say is that the URA and the Housing Authority, we like brothers and sisters as far as going. Well, I don't know which brothers and sisters as far as going to attack affordable housing. We jointly work with home ownership programs, and now we're going to jointly work on this landlord incentive program to increase affordable housing in the city of Pittsburgh.
That's great. Well, I really appreciate that information, and I can't I can't thank you all enough. Knowledge is a great asset to me and in my office, and I appreciate the work that you do. Monique, thanks for being here, and I just look forward to working with you further in the future. And if there's anything that you think council can do or the city can do more to, assist in that, assist on that wait list, please let us know.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right, I think we also have for first round, is Councilman Kraus still with us? I saw him there and I don't see him on screen. I think he might have left us.
Okay.
So Councilwoman Smith had further questions. Councilwoman, are you still there?
I sure am. Thank you so much. So I'm just curious. I saw you did the program with Computer Reach, which I love Computer Reach. They've helped us distribute 200 computers with Sister Mary at Save a Life Today, SALT, and they did a great job. But what I heard you say was that you worked with Pittsburgh Public Schools, and it just made my skin just boil, because honestly, they have a bigger budget than we have. And the fact that they couldn't provide their kids with computers is just outrageous to me. But I also want to make sure, are you working with other schools? Because a lot of our students in Pittsburgh don't attend Pittsburgh Public Schools anymore. They're attending Christian schools or charter schools or different places. Some are even homeschooled. I just want to make sure that we're not missing kids because they don't attend Pittsburgh Public Schools, because there's a lot of kids that attend other types of schools.
Okay, well, I would say if you a resident kid who live in our programs, we would find a pathway to get those resources to them. Our intent was that we know that we didn't want a gap, which we do have a gap in education, but we want to make sure our kids had the opportunity to immediately take advantage of the type of platforms the school board had as far as working, doing school from home or a couple of days. But I would say that if there are students who goes to charter schools or other schools, I think we can find a pathway to assist them.
Okay, so that's what I want to make sure, that we're assisting poor children, no matter where they live, no matter what schools they attend, because we have a lot, and we even have kids that attend private schools and parochial schools, on some even on or receiving grants or some assistance to go there. So I just want to make sure that we're not missing anybody. And like I said, it makes me angry because their budget is so large, and they should have, I think everybody feels that they should have been ready to do a little bit differently. And I do realize that they have more unique challenges than other school districts around us, and a lot more students. But I actually worked for Pittsburgh Public Schools, so I before my life here. So I just want to make sure that, the one, all kids are taken care of, regardless of whether housing authority stepped in or not. It should have been something that was done is. So that was my concern, is that we're using taxpayer dollars when taxpayer dollars are already paying for something that should have been taken care of.
Okay.
So that's one of the issues. But I heard you, and when you were talking about the waiting list, how many, did you mention any of them are outside of the city of Pittsburgh?
No, to be able to qualify for a voucher, initially you must have to live in the city for 1 year
Okay.
before you could take that voucher anywhere. We removed that. We might put it back in. I think that during the time when Pittsburgh was very progressive in bringing outside entities, companies, the housing authority started losing Section 8 housing choice vouchers opportunity throughout the neighborhoods because, other people was coming into the city. I mean, we understand that. So our people, our residents was unable to find affordable housing in the city of Pittsburgh. So we teamed up with Allegheny County Housing Authority such that people can migrate out to Allegheny County. But right now, what we begin to see are those vouchers are moving back, and people from Allegheny County moving back into the city. So for that short period of time, we had to do that because, people had to find housing.
And so one of the things, I mean, when you hear you talking, I hate to say, but that makes my case because I keep saying that we should be merging housing authority within Allegheny County so that we can serve all people with greater resources in a collective effort.
Right.
But I mean, I would still take you as a director, okay? but I just want to say I think that we ought to be looking into something like that. I mean, when they talk about all the mergers, that's one I never understood why we didn't start there, because it makes sense. Because in my district, we border the most boroughs, so I know the needs in other boroughs all around me. And so I know that there's a need, and especially in places like McKees Rocks and Stowe and actually several Ingram. There's several of our places that need help. So I do see it, but I just want to say that I also want to thank Michelle Ralston and Jasmine, who Kim in my office works with pretty often too. They've also been very helpful. I mean, you have a good team, a lot of people helping, but I do have some concerns still. So I'd like to set up a meeting with you after this so that we can talk about some of the things that that we'd like to see done in our side of town too.
Okay, so we can set that meeting up, or with any of the council people that need a little more comprehensive information regarding the housing authority, or looking at opportunities in the neighborhood through a grassroots process. We are open to that.
Okay.
But I also want to go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I also want to take this opportunity. It's not just me, it's in the housing authority.
Right.
It's the mayor's office working with the chief of staff, working with URA, working with foundations, working with CDCs, working with grassroots groups. All of us are as one. We always like to call this group as One Pittsburgh, because we was able to achieve one of the biggest grants, from HUD, from Choice Neighborhood. And you can see the outcome out there in Lamar. But we will continue to go for big grants so we can change communities and provide affordable, better housing throughout the city.
And so when you say that, I also have to thank Alex, who also serves on your board.
Oh, yeah.
He was my appointee. Yeah, one of the people I recommend. So I want to thank him for serving on there. I know that he was excited when I first appointed him. I haven't heard about it too much since. I'll have to ask him. I mean, I see him pretty often though, but
he's involved. Our whole board. I mean, this is a group effort. The board, all the partners I just mentioned, under the leadership of the mayor, to improve the quality of affordable housing throughout the city.
Okay, and then when you're talking about building, I just want to say I hope that you're using union labor and that we're working on getting people in housing authority that are using your vouchers, that are using your services, getting some of the people that might need help getting into the unions connected to some of those programs. And I know that there's some efforts in that regard,
Yes.
but the whole purpose to me, what I would love to see is a day where these services are not really even needed, because I'd love to see people lifted up and out of poverty and not have, I mean, I said to people, I was young and I was a widow and I had 2 kids. I struggled.
Mhm.
I struggled a lot. And I'd
Mhm.
hate to ever see anybody go through that. It's not something people want to do. People think people just want to sit back and ask for, that's not what people want, is to be able to do things on their own and to provide for their families. And I just hope that we're providing every opportunity and every
Yes, we
connection
are.
we can. Okay, thank you.
Okay,
That's it for me. Thank you, Councilwoman.
thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Smith. I'm going to ask a few questions of my own.
Okay.
And so to just give a heads
Mhm.
up to Parking Authority who's waiting there, we're getting close to finishing our
Mhm.
questions for the Pittsburgh Housing Authority. I was just, I have a couple questions about how vouchers have decreased in certain neighborhoods. Mr. Banyan, I'm glad you brought that up, because the neighborhoods I represent are neighborhoods that have had dramatically increasing price pressure on both housing, like housing costs for
Mhm.
purchasing housing, but also rental cost has gone up dramatically, sky high,
Right.
one of the fastest in the nation, especially in Lawrenceville 15201. And there's a deep concern that many hundreds of vouchers units have been lost in
Correct.
Lawrenceville. So I'm assuming that's one of the places you were referring to.
Mhm.
Could you expand a
I
little
didn't
bit?
want to call out any names, but
Well, it was
anyway.
all my questions here that I was
Okay.
going to ask you. So I'm glad that you touched upon it, because it's a point of concern, so much so in Lawrenceville for the general viewer. If you
Mhm.
aren't following this, that because we lost so many hundreds of units of affordable housing, not in towers or in public housing authority buildings like you would see in neighborhoods like East
Mhm.
Liberty, but in the single family homes, which had been for decades 4 or 5 units. And then many hundreds of them got flipped. So you lost 4 affordable units and now it's a single family home. So going from, 4 affordable units that maybe were voucher units, and then being, flipped to being a $500,000 house. I mean, it's quite dramatic what's happened in the last 5 to 10
Right.
years. So if you could speak to that, the concern in Lawrenceville is how to gain back affordable units, so much so that we passed mandatory zoning that if a bigger developer builds 20 units or more, they have to build at least 10% of those units as deeply affordable units at the 50% AMI. Some people advocated
Mhm.
we should have gone deeper. And so we're trying to gain those back. I want to thank you for your participation in the mandatory IZ as well. But first let's talk about vouchers. And if you could just give us kind of anyone here on the call, Mr. Banyan or Ms. Pierre, if you could explain why someone would have a voucher in their hand, right? For those of us who are listening who's never had to live through the process, why they would have a voucher in their hand and not be able to rent an apartment in the city. Let's just start with the basics.
Okay, the first thing is available landlords. So that's why we are trying to increase landlord participation. We are starting a very aggressive marketing campaign. We are giving landlord bonuses or whatever, anything possible to increase the landlords. As far in your community, it's probably better for us to work with your community group and work to find opportunities for affordable housing. Like you said before, we had hundreds of units in that community, and as the city start getting very aggressive and bringing people in, which is a good thing. They didn't have any place to live, and then what happened was they start moving into communities and taking out the Section 8. Then we seen for a short period of time, as the contractors came in and started building these large communities, people started moving out, but it did not make a significant impact because, like you said, they'll take a 3-unit house. There used to be 3 units and they convert it to one big house.
And there's no renters at all in there.
Okay,
There's
so
just no
it finally
there's
got
no
to that
rental
point.
apartments in that house anymore.
Right.
So that's the thing. So it's gone back to just single family. And so
Mhm.
what we have these large multi-units, but you can't really get a voucher in there because they're too expensive.
Well, what we did was we went back to HUD and we realized we had this problem in Pittsburgh. So they gave us an opportunity to increase payment standards in certain communities. And I believe that's one of them, but it still might not reach reach the threshold that for somebody with a voucher to get in.
So
So
again,
what
just for the public, your voucher
Mhm.
kind of only covers a certain amount of dollars.
Correct.
Right? And so the rents are sky high, and especially the Strip in Lawrenceville. And there's many thousands of new units. Honestly, there's probably about 3,000 units throughout my district that are brand new,
Mhm.
right? If you include Strip and Lawrenceville, but you also kind of go up the hill towards the east end along Bauman Center, which we split with Councilman Strasburger and myself, but I've had multi-units built there as well. So, but again, those are very high rents.
I think that the housing authority enjoy a challenge. We can work, with your community leaders, grassroots, my team, Monique and her team, and my finance team, and also the other partners, the URA and foundations. I think we can find a pathway. It's always a way. We just don't know it right now.
Well, the
So if we
inclusionary
can,
zoning should be
Mhm.
adding units back, and they're
right?
under construction now.
Okay.
So because at 40th and Butler, a
Yes.
big out-of-town developer was building they had built 250 units before we passed the inclusionary zoning and just refused to add affordable units. And so it was such a big site that 13 acres, in fact, that when they got ready for their phase 2, to build another 350 units. Now they are required to build 35 affordable units. And you could speak to you are helping us do the income assessment, I believe.
Correct. But I would ask, and I'm not sure Monique been involved in this, anytime those opportunities when the developers come in, they might want to drop by and see us because they don't know what we have in our toolbox, that we can make all of this a win-win situation. So,
Excellent. I just met
Mhm.
with another developer yesterday who's got 9 acres in the Strip district that they're trying to figure out what to do with. So I mentioned to them that we
Hey,
had not only the mandatory affordable units being built in Lawrenceville, but we also had voluntary affordable units being built that I think are finished or close to being finished in the Strip district at 23rd and Railroad. Beautiful view of downtown, marina, right on the riverfront, and they're including some small but lower cost rentals. I believe Councilman Strasburger has a project underway at Shakespeare. What we still call Shakespeare, there's probably a different name for it. On Penn Avenue and Shady Avenue, right? Where we're trying to see affordable units in those big luxury multi-unit buildings.
And I'll just step in and say that I'm so sorry to interrupt, but they are also, without being told to, without being mandated to, not only carving out a percentage of units that will be a certain level of AMI affordability, will be accepting vouchers at 100% of their project-based vouchers at 100% of their units.
So what I encourage our council people is you talk to developers, the housing authority door is always open. You don't know what we have in our toolbox, but our end game is to provide affordable housing. So our goals are the same. And so even though it's worth the conversation because we have a big imagination over here and I got a great staff and they will figure out a way to make stuff work if we can provide housing for a family. So,
Excellent. I just have a couple more questions
Okay.
and then Parking Authority will get to you. We know we've been hearing now, and as City Council have been struggling with how to increase affordable housing, right? And we've seen lots of reports, and we know we're upwards of close to 20,000 units short, right? And so I think constituents want to know how Housing Authority, have you added units? And if so, how many? Have you increased vouchers? You just spoke to how you've increased working proactively, beseeching from HUD an increase of that dollar amount that vouchers could be used for, which was, I think, well done to make vouchers more usable in more neighborhoods. But kind of communicate to us, summarize very quickly, what
Okay.
what are your limits? And is there any way we can help you expand your capacity to fill this need, right? We have this need in housing, and you're the housing authority.
Okay.
Why do we have this need is what people always ask.
Well,
How did this happen, and why isn't it fixed?
wow, that's a big question.
It
But
really
anyway,
is. It really is, right? But we can't dodge it.
no, I'm not going to dodge it. Primary, where we at right now, first we come up with a whole lot of innovative programs. One is before the housing authority, what we used to do is write a check to a developer, and that developer would build a house, and that was it. And the developer would own that place. The evolution of the housing authority of the city of Pittsburgh, what we have done, we have became partners. And also we provide opportunity. It used to cost us $400,000 to build a house or apartment or whatever. You know, that's regarding because Davis-Bacon and all the federal regulations and lawyers and yada, yada, yada. However, we came up with a unique, innovative program here in the city of Pittsburgh where we can work with developers to produce units of about $100,000. So that means that for what we used to do for one unit, now we can create 4 units. And then also we boosting up our home ownership program. We used to look at maybe 10 home ownerships per year, but next year we're kicking out to 50 units that people can purchase homes. And like I said, we will continue to work with HUD with their special programs like Choice Neighborhood. And we also will work with developers and grassroots groups that can tell us what part of the neighborhood are plots or opportunities in the neighborhood where affordable housing can happen. Most of the affordable housing relationships that we have throughout this city, you would not know it. There's a whole lot of stuff you drive by every day and may not realize it's affordable housing. But we still notice the need. Our mission is to continue to find innovative ways to create affordable houses. So I encourage, if you talk to developers, they need to, have a conversation with us. And we talk to everyone. We do not, we talk to anyone. It doesn't matter. The housing authority will always have a conversation with anyone regarding affordable housing, because somewhere in that conversation, there could be opportunity.
Thank you. I know we don't want to drag this out anymore, but we do have a lot more to talk about. And so we'll have to
Okay.
take it to another day. I think we've got enough information so the public
Okay.
has an understanding of what you do and why
Mhm.
we work with the Housing Authority and what your budget is.
Okay,
Any other members have any last thoughts?
Mhm.
No? Wonderful. I'll ask you all, thank you again for your work. Thank you for being there for us to work with as we try to create new solutions. We're all working, as you say, to the same ends, and hopefully we can make some progress in 2021. If you'll turn off your cameras, I'll ask the Pittsburgh Parking Authority to turn their cameras on.
Thank you.
Lovely seeing you all.
Mhm.
While we do that, Mr. Urbanik, you can give us the overview for Pittsburgh Parking Authority.
Thank you, Councilwoman. The mission of the Public Parking Authority of Pittsburgh is to provide and maintain affordable, safe, and clean public parking throughout the city, to uniformly enforce parking ordinances and laws of the city and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and the collections thereof, to advance the economic progress of the region, and to do so with the utmost commitment to customer service. The Parking Authority is responsible for 11 parking garages, 34 off-street lots, 1 attended parking plaza, the Mon Wharf, over 9,000 on-street metered parking spaces, and 33 residential parking program districts, and also oversees the operations of the Pittsburgh Parking Court. Well, let me get our numbers for the Parking Authority. The 2021 budget highlights the Parking Authority provides a number of revenue sources to the city. All of them have taken tremendous hits due to the COVID pandemic, as we all know. Parking Authority tickets, $2,239,000. That's reduced by 75% from what the budget was last year. Daily parking meters, 1,826,000. That's reduced by 80% from last year's budget. Authority payments, $1,900,000. That's the same as last year. Luckily for us, the authority made its 2020 payment in February before the pandemic hit. The wharf parking, $80,900. That's reduced by 79%. Parking Authority also collects the 37.5 parking tax on all Pittsburgh parking lots and garage receipts. The citywide parking tax line is estimated to decrease by 12% from last year's projections. And just to remind everybody too, the Parking Authority doesn't have all the garages, only has a percentage of the garages. So we get a lot of money in private parking tax as well too from the private garages. Those things have also been decimated this year. Total of $52 million was projected, or we will receive for 2021 in parking tax. And just a reminder, year end this year, we're estimated to receive only $29 million. The amount we were supposed to get this year was around $61 million. So you can see the operations of parking are very difficult through this pandemic, and hopefully things will get better. And with that, let's hand it back to you, Councilwoman.
Wonderful. Mr. Honorado, you can introduce yourself, and do you have a presentation or any information to share?
Thank you, and thanks, Council, for holding the meeting today. And Bill, thanks for the summary. I would just add a few things. Some of our numbers have been adjusted. We now have 13 garage facilities. That includes the 2nd Avenue and Mon Wharf, and we're down to 32 neighborhood surface lots. The other ones were sold for economic development in the neighborhoods. We also are funded entirely in our own operation. We receive no appropriations from any outside sources. Approximately 97% of our gross revenues are realized through the garage operation and meter operations. With that, I think Bill had pretty much summarized our operation and how we're coming to existence. Our budget, we just passed our budget for 2021 last week at this month's board meeting. As I'm sure you're aware, Authority has a 5-member board appointed by the mayor. The Authority's board is responsible for setting the rates at the garages and the neighborhood service lots, and City Council is responsible for setting the rates on the on-street meters. Bill was mentioning the $61 million. If I'm correct, Bill, you can correct me if not. That's total parking tax revenues throughout the city from us and the private operators. With our 2021 budget, we're took a significant hit, not only this year, but into next year due to the COVID. We're going to have a total operating budget of about $34 million. That's down from about 63 million last year. Our payment, and with that, our projected payment to the city this year will be on the 2021 budget, it will be a total of 15.9 million. That includes all payments such as the co-op included in the co-op agreement that Bill covered is from the line item parking court, on-street meter revenues, Mon Wharf, real estate taxes, payment, pilot payment, and parking taxes. This year's pilot payments to the city for the 2020 budget, when originally done, was projected to be just under 30 million. Since the pandemic hit, the actual payments to the city by the end of 2021 will be somewhere between 10 to $12 million, almost a decrease of $20 million. We had to amend our 2020 budget. We've seen a 50% hit in our revenues across the board on the garages and meter revenues. And we've also had to we're closing tomorrow on a refinancing to ensure that we can meet our debt service coverage and ensure the payment based on the calculations of the co-agreement to the city.
Thank you. I'm just going to recap that you just said 50% hit on revenue for 2020. Revenue's down by half, and that you've even had to refinance some of your bond payments to go lower.
Correct.
Stressful times at the parking authority.
We didn't finance any additional monies. We just extended the payments by 6 years.
Right, right. I'm just looking, Mr. Honor, to see which council members are still with us. I see Mr. Coghill. I see Mr. Wilson. And I think we just lost Miss Councilwoman Strasburger. She's still one of your board members. However, I was just going to ask her
No,
for comment.
no.
No, she rotated off. Got
Mr.
it.
Wilson is.
Oh, excuse me, Mr. Wilson. I forgot. I was trying to keep track of who was where. Mr. Coghill, would you mind if I ask Mr. Wilson if he wants to go first?
Absolutely not.
Thank you. Councilman Wilson, do you have anything to add, or this was your first year?
Yes.
Your first budget set of budget hearings and your first year on the Parking Authority.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Well, being on the Parking Authority this past year has not, I think I was appointed in March, just before this happened, and I was introduced to some hard matters, right from the gates. But Mr. Honorado and his team have really put together a plan moving forward the best they can do. I mean, we talk at the meetings, we talk on the phone. I'm trying to think of other than giving the public some information, I think maybe, I've have all my questions answered, but I think for the public, maybe it'd be good if Mr. Honor, you could talk about the challenges in the future. So this pandemic doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon. Can you just elaborate more on how the Parking Authority will stay afloat during these times?
Oh, sure, Councilman. We, as noted, when 2020 hit, we did drastic cuts across the board in every department. We did payroll reductions. We furloughed staff. We took all the necessary actions that we could. We even furloughed our contracted security for about 6 months, and that was a savings of about $230,000 a month. Today, our garage operations, which were prior to the pandemic at 98% utilization or greater, we're averaging about 39–40% utilization in our garages, and the meter revenues are down or about a third, so we're about 2/3 occupancy in our meter revenues. We project in our 2021 budget, by the end of 2021, our projection is that we'll only be at 60% of our 2019 numbers. So doing that, what we felt was the best move to make us financially sound going forward, not a one-time fix, was to refinance our debt. Our debt was down to about $50 million and to be paid off in full in 2026. This year's payment due December 31st, and next year's was about $8.1 million. With the refinancing, we reduced that down to 2.3, extended it out for 6 years, and not only try to account for this year, but next year is about $3 million. So we reduced that $5 million to try to ensure that we'll meet our debt service coverage this year and the years going forward. And we'll continue to monitor and reduce expenses where we can. We don't see the garages. We're monitoring all the activities downtown that are outside of our control. A lot of the major hotels are still taking a significant hit and aren't open. We just heard from Mellon Bank of New York Mellon, they were not bringing their employees back until April. A lot of the larger companies too now have told their employees to work remotely till April, so that'll have an effect on us. We'll continue to monitor that and look at expenses, reduce expenses where we can going forward.
And all the garages are still open?
All the garages are still open with the exception of the red garage at the Grant Street Transportation Center. That's one garage facility, but it's two separate garages for us. So we closed half of it and we have enough space in the blue garage to handle all the parkers right now.
Are you seeing, what's the conversation around increasing rates or finding other ways to get revenue? I know that you are in constant contact with, other, companies that own garages. Are they raising rates? Or are they keeping rates lower so they compete with you? What's happening there?
Most of the discussion with them, most of them are keeping rates the same. I mean, the thought is that, you raise rates when you need when the demand's there. The demand's not here right now. We're working with the city, Department of DOMI. We're reconfiguring curbside management right now, where a lot of the street parking has gone away and it became extra areas for tables to be extended from restaurants and bars and additional bike lanes. And we're also taking into account now the lost spaces will be due to the BRT that'll start construction in about 18 months. So we are working with DOMI to try to assist the small retailers and restaurants if any way we can with drop off and pickup areas. But we don't see any rates being increased. In our 5-year projection for the refinancing, we had a rate increase in 2024 in our garages. But other than that, we probably will not anticipate a rate increase because that will just drive people away that are here now.
Mm-hmm. I know that one of the big costs with the authority is the cost of the garage and all the different garages that you have and the maintenance. With the decreased amount of cars that are driving in and out, does that help with the maintenance costs, or is the maintenance cost staying the same?
On the maintenance costs, we're looking at that, but it stays the same because we have to maintain it. At all our garages, we have closed off the upper levels now where, keep the public and the vehicles out of there to try to maintain lessen the maintenance. But structurally wise, we've took a drastic hit in our capital budget. We usually average between 10 and 12 million. 2021 capital budget is going to be just under $3 million. So yeah, we'll continue to do the daily maintenance on our garage facilities. For instance, like at the last board meeting, we passed a resolution to be prepared for the winter with salt supplies, but we will not need to do the roofs this year because no one's parking on there, and we'll only pay for the salt that is used during the year. So we'll continue to monitor the expenses, but the lighting in the garage is maintained. So utilities got to be kept on. So and the garage personnel got to be there when it's open. So there's not a significant savings from an operation and maintenance standpoint in the garage.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate now. We're coming into the holiday season, and people, that's usually probably a high time for business, and that's going to take a hit. Well, I appreciate your time and everything that you and your team have done to, get us through these times. I don't have any further questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman. And I'd just like to thank you and the board, because without the support of the board, I don't think we would have been able to, manage and stay afloat where we are today. We do have a good board, and they're supportive and give us guidance along the way.
I appreciate that. I think that we're very fortunate to have someone like yourself in this position. You've got us through difficult times in the past, and so I appreciate your leadership.
Thank you. And I'll just reiterate what Castor said too. It's not me. Without my team here, we would not be able to do what we're doing.
Thanks.
Thank you both. Mr. Coghill, do you have any questions?
Just a couple. Thank you. Hi, David. Thank you for being here.
Anthony.
And I wanted to say thank you for always being responsive to me. Whatever parking issues come up, you handle right away for me, which is very nice. And you've been at it a long time. How many years have you been there now?
I've been at the authority for over 20, the executive director for about the last 15.
15 years, yeah. Okay, so I'll tell you, David, I look at your department as one, or authority as one that is like a well-oiled machine. And the work you do there, I think you really have a grasp on what you're doing. Now, let me get this straight. You took the operating budget, you cut it in half, basically?
Well, we didn't cut it in half. We lost half our revenues for 2020. Our 2020 budget was for about $64 million. We're going to bring in about $32 million this year.
Right. And next year looks pretty bleak as well. And, I tell you that just out of curiosity, when I think about your authority, I think, long range now, of course, next year is going to be tough too, I believe, unless that vaccine gets rolled out early. But even beyond that, I feel like, parking overall in the city of Pittsburgh, which used to be such a premium, do you fear like, people are going to now be saying, why am I renting the top story of Oxford Center? And, whether it's parking and the rent that they pay there, the people are going to move away from it. I mean, do you feel like are you projecting that parking will be back if the pandemic, sides? Or are you
I
still?
think once it sides, it'll come back, but probably not to the demand like you noted to where it was prior to that. We are looking at different options. Specifically, like you said, companies are getting familiar with working remotely and saving costs, but I think at some point they'll have to bring employees back. Now that may be on every other week where an employee is coming into the office instead of, they're renting half the space, where we'd have to get creative where now we have monthly leases. We may have to come up with bi-monthly leases or weekly leases and just monitor our operations going forward, maybe down the road, adjusting the rates accordingly. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. We have to figure out how we're going to come out of the pandemic. It's out of our control, but we're constantly monitoring it on a daily basis.
It seems like yesterday I was talking to you about trying to add parking into some of the residential neighborhoods that I represent, but
yes,
it's just doesn't seem the right topic anymore. But
well,
anyway,
that's where we are with our 9th and Penn project. We were going ahead, replacing that the old dilapidated garage. We got it raised. It's a complete clean site right now, but it's on hold, until the demand comes back. We're at only 40% utilization, or does the demand come back? And what are we going to do with that footprint now?
Yep, absolutely. So the other question, this is kind of unrelated to the budget, but I get a lot of, I don't want to say complaints, but a lot of inquiries. The permit parking, it used to be that there was a sticker that people put in their window. So the residents, if somebody was parked outside of a house for 3 days, they would know, okay, well, the person has their tag. And now we went away from that. Is that right?
That is correct. We went with virtual now, that we went with virtual permits and virtual visitors pass. It was the last technology upgrade at the authority after the meter upgrade. So you're correct. The neighbors can't tell if somebody's there. We drive down the street in the vehicle and we'll be able to tell if that license plate has a permit, a visitor's pass, or is legal parking within the 2-hour limit or a violation. And then we would tag it. The customers still can call in with the license plate. We won't identify that for them, but we would tell them if it has a permit or not.
Yeah. Was the sticker, that wasn't, I mean, I get it with technology, you don't need the sticker. You don't need, your people don't need the sticker.
Correct.
But it was kind of comforting to the folks who saw that car parked out in front of their house and without them having to pick up the phone and bother your department and say, what about, turning the license plate and everything else in. I'd love to see that little sticker back, I guess is what I'm saying, David.
Well, to be honest with you, I don't see it coming back. I mean, it was one way too that we moved forward with technology, and the license plate is the focus point now for everything. And it was just one of the ways to cut costs too on the mailing now, the application, mailing out the permits, printing the permits. Now everything can be done online. Probably 90% of our applications are done online. And I guess a note from the pandemic, the RPP residential permit areas have become more populated with vehicles because the cars that used to leave in a day and come downtown to work now are staying home and are staying within those RPP areas. And we're seeing more congestions in those areas rather than the downtown area right now, as a switch, as a cause from the pandemic.
So no stickers.
Correct.
Okay, now that's it, David. I think you guys, you and your team, as you say, so rightfully, that you have a good team behind you. It all starts at the top. So yeah, thanks for what you do. I think you do a great job there, and hopefully parking creates the revenue that we expect it to in the near future. That's all
Yes.
from me, Councilwoman Gross.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coghill. Mr. Honor, I just have a few follow-up questions, I think, as well. And so I'll give fair warning to the Stadium and Exhibition Authority, people who are still kind of waiting and listening. So you are projecting 60% of 2019's revenue for 2021.
Correct.
So we received $44 million this year, kind of based on 2019's revenue. So 60% of that is going to be something like 25 million. I didn't hear a projection revenue for how much you would be able to give to the city in your payment.
2020
So
or
just to remind everyone, the parking authority is a revenue generator and generates so much revenue that there's a cooperative agreement that the parking authority gives some of that revenue to the city's general fund.
For 2020, the original budget projected, we projected to give the city just under $30 million. Then the pandemic hit and we had lost our revenues and we had to amend our budget. With the new amended budget and the refinancing enabled us to maintain our payment. It is decreased from about 29.5 million to about $11 million that we'll give the city in 2020. In our 2021 budget, which we just was board approved last week, with those revenues, our projected payment to the city in 2021 is just under $16 million. Basically 50% of what the city received the last 3 or 4 years.
Okay, that's much more clear. I appreciate it. So as just for the listeners at home, that's a big chunk of the revenue shortfall that the city has, is the revenue that we had forecasted from reliably. The Park Authority has been giving us a surplus revenue for the last 4 or 5 years. So that's really taken a hit. And you imagine, again, the big parking lots, where is the bulk of that revenue in a good year? I'm imagining it's around downtown in the stadiums, right? You're imagining the whole county and region kind of driving to the city.
The garage revenues on a yearly basis are about $34 million, and the meter revenue over the last couple of years were about $20 million.
Okay. Thank you.
54, and then we got another 10 million from parking court. But so that's where the majority of money's come. Different neighborhoods produce different amounts. Downtown, 9 of our garages out of the 13 are in the downtown area. So yes, the garage revenues are mainly downtown, and the neighborhood lots, meter revenues do well. We do well downtown in Oakland, Shady Side, Squirrel Hill. So there's different neighborhoods with the, different amount of parking and different amount of meters we can do there. Also want to mention that we do have a phone app that we use for meter parking, and was brought on in 2015. Today, 50% of the meter revenues transactions are going through the phone app and away from the meters.
Right. As people have adjusted them, that has produced its own side effects that we didn't expect, that I'll just not to go down a rabbit hole, but then so people can kind of stay at the surface lots all day long because they can keep re-upping their meter, they're on their phone app. They didn't actually have to leave the hospital, walk over to a surface lot and put their money in the meter. So we have people on 12-hour shifts kind of occupying what we had depended on to be small business customer parking. So there's that's my particular district, because I'm surrounded by these big institutions in some of my neighborhoods.
Well, we
So,
can look at that in your district,
Yeah.
because that was an issue in Bloomfield and the Cedar a lot too.
Yep.
And we went in and adjusted the rate so that that problem would be eliminated.
to
Or
try to get turnover. Yeah, you need turnover. We've had long discussions with the councilman members who are new of how to, in a small business district, you need people to not occupy that parking spot for a day or even several days. You need it to be a turnover so that constantly there's about 10% of the parking spaces that are empty so that people can come in and find a spot.
yes, and I think
we've been working on that for years now.
there's two philosophies there with the time limits, or you control it and create 10% vacancy by the rates. And we've done that downtown and it's been very successful.
Maybe it's time to revisit that data, and I'd be happy to have those conversations for my district, because I do still have complaints. As you mentioned, some spots are being taken by restaurant seating, which is hugely popular and supported by residents who are kind of almost eating more from their local neighborhood restaurants because we're all working from home. But then also, there are some spots in my district on the main streets where it's really been a discussion in the neighborhood that rates maybe need to be higher, not lower. And so this would be the right time to talk about that, because I heard you
Yes.
say that the meter revenue has not fallen off as much as the garage revenue. It's fallen, but it hasn't fallen off as much.
A third, but people are more apt to park on the street before they pull into a garage. And that's been the case always in the past too.
Yeah. And they're more distributed,
Mhm.
right? And so your
Yes.
garages are concentrated downtown, which has really seen the most drop off in
Yes.
density, daily density. I don't know what other vocabulary to use there, right? So I think that's really interesting option. So I'm going to raise a topic. We don't have to explore it fully today, but are you allowed to lease out your spots, or is it all because they're public garages? Do not do private leases?
We do. The easiest way to answer that, everything we offer must be on a first come, first
Okay.
to the public. We did go to the state and had the state law modified where for any new spaces, we can work with developers on a net new spaces, displacing current parkers. But right now we can give out about 5% of our garage in one garage to a developer.
So ironically, this isn't really under your purview. It's really about, for us council members, what parking we're requiring to be built new. We just heard parking is down all over the place, and we still have these giant requirements for new parking spaces to be built. When you have, again, I have a lot of new construction. Councilman Wilson is seeing new construction as well. So imagine like a new office building or a new commercial space has a pretty high parking requirement. So again, it's not really, maybe we'll pick your brain off camera here because it's not really under parking authority purview or budget, but I wonder if our at least current parking requirements are too high for this reality that we're in. Certainly, I totally believe that we are way overbuilt parking in the Strip District. Now, I don't want Strip District merchants to get mad at me, as I've explained to them. They're surrounded by like 10,000 new units that their customers can't use because they're private spaces. They're either apartment building spaces or they're office building spaces. I mean, we've added thousands. Right? But our requirements have required developers to build many thousands of new parking spaces in the Strip District. But there's this like imbalance, like they sit empty and people can't find a place to park when they go shopping. And we just have a real struggle there, and Domi's helping us through that. So I won't take your time more today, but it's, I think it's an opportunity where we need to talk about what we can do to figure out how to balance that, like fill the needs where they are, but not require these expenditures elsewhere. And for the public, since I got on a roll here, it's about $25,000 to $35,000 to build that garage single parking space.
Yes, you're in the ballpark.
So you can knock $25,000, $35,000 off the price of the residential unit, right? And so when we start talking about affordable housing, like we were in the last conversation, the cost of parking is raising the rent directly. There's no doubt about that. So another rabbit hole to go down, and not really for today's discussion, but parking is always a big subject in District 7 for sure. And I know in other council districts. So I hope we have stadium and all the stadium authorities standing by. And Mr. Honorado, I don't think we have any. Does anyone have any final questions? No. Thank you for being there. And thank you for being a good partner for the city, and thank you for helping us through this difficult time for revenue.
Thank you.
Lovely to see you. Okay.
Thank you, David.
Hey, David.
Okay, we have, we'll hand it over to Mr. Urbanik next, and we have everybody from the authorities, from the stadium authorities are here.
We do, yes.
Okay, stand by, and Mr. Urbanik, you can do your presentation.
Thank you again, Councilwoman. The Sports and Exhibition Authority, we'll call it the SCA, is the successor to the Public Auditorium Authority of Pittsburgh and Allegheny County. The name was changed November 1999 as the SCA began working with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the City of Pittsburgh, and Allegheny County to implement the Regional Destination Financing Plan. The plan supported the construction of PNC Park, Heinz Field, and the expansion of the David Lawrence Convention Center, as well as the infrastructure improvements associated with these projects. The SCA-owned facilities include PNC Park, Heinz Field, PPG Paints Arena, the David Lawrence Convention Center, the site of the former Mellon Arena, North Shore Riverfront Park, and 2 North Shore parking garages. The SCA consists of 7 members, 3 of whom are appointed by the city and 3 by the county. The 7th member is appointed by the city and county jointly. I believe Councilman Coghill, are
Yes,
you
sir.
the representative for the SCA?
Okay.
I'll speak briefly on the Stadium Authority. The Stadium Authority owned the Three River Stadium and continues to own the land which it's at. The Stadium Authority is responsible for the development of that land from surface parking to a mixed-use urban development. The Stadium Authority has a 5-member board. Each is appointed by the mayor. The highlights for the 2021 budget, the operating budget impact, the SCA collects much of the city's amusement tax revenue, as well as other taxes at their properties, such as the parking tax as well. The city's estimated amusement tax revenues decreased by 5.7 million in the 2021. That's a 31% from what was budgeted in 2020. Likewise, the non-resident sport facility usage fee is also decreased by $2.5 million or 47%. The capital budget impact, the SEA, is the project manager for the I-579 CAP project. The city is not paying for any of the construction costs. However, we will be responsible for a significant operating and maintenance costs upon the completion of the new park and bridge going out into the future. And that's what I have for the highlights. Councilwoman?
Thank you, Mr. Urbanik. I'm going to ask our guests to introduce themselves because both screens say Mary Conturo.
Yeah, we didn't read your directions very well, I don't.
It's okay.
So I'm Mary Conturo, the executive director of both authorities, the Sports and Exhibition Authority and the SEA. The staff of the SEA is also staff of the Stadium Authority. So the Stadium Authority has no employees. With me is Roseanne Casciato, and she is our CFO.
Thank you for that. Do you have a presentation? Anything you'd like to add?
Well, Bill did a good job, but so he went through the projects that we own. So basically the 3 main big sports facilities, the convention center, the North Shore Riverfront Park, the park along the convention center, 3 garages on the North Shore. And we own about 2/3 of the land where the Civic Arena sat. The URA owns the rest of it. So that's part of the Lower Hill development that you are aware of. And then the Stadium Authority owns the undeveloped parcels between Heinz Field and PNC Park. We receive no direct money from the city and we provide no direct money to the city. What we do is generate the amusement tax and the parking tax We also generate sales tax and for the city and for the RAD and county hotel tax. I think that's the ongoing projects that we're working on, in addition for overseeing the leases of the sports facilities and the operation of the convention center, is the CAP project that Bill mentioned. That CAP project, the construction is underway now. The bridge deck is now complete, and they are working on the surface improvements, basically. So that new 3-acre park is on schedule to be done next fall. And then the Lower Hill and the North Shore developments that you are aware of, that there are various projects there in the works. And I think that's what I have.
Thank you, Ms. Conturo. And I have, do we have any members here who are, oh, Mr. Coghill's on the board, that's right. So do you mind, members, if I start with Mr. Coghill and see if you've got anything to add or any questions? Mr. Coghill?
Thank you, Councilwoman Gross, and welcome, Mary, and welcome, Roseanne. Councilwoman Gross caught that. I was going to introduce you, so I'm glad you pointed that out. This is Roseanne Casciato, who, I think still lives in my district.
Don't.
Oh, that's
I'm
okay.
sorry. My entire family does those. So.
Right. So I don't have any real questions about the budget, simply because, I live it with you basically at our meetings. I just have a couple comments. I will say, I lobbied hard with the mayor to be on the board, and I'll tell you, I'm really glad I am. I find it very interesting. I feel like, Mary, under your leadership, it is a very well-oiled machine down there. We make sure that our facilities, whether it be Heinz Field or PPG Paints, we make sure that, that their facilities are top-notch. I feel have a really great working relationship with the sporting teams. We're not always, we're usually fighting because it's really a landlord-tenant situation. So when the Steelers want this $5 bazillion scoreboard that, they feel that we should take care of. So the tug of war back and forth. But what I'm going to say is, through it all, we always find consensus with the sporting teams, which is really great, because besides the amusement tax that comes in, the restaurants, the bars, everything else, the amount of revenue that comes into the city from them is really, I don't even know if we can put a number on it. So I'm really excited to be part of that. Other than the woes that we're going to have because of the pandemic, parking, of course, we just went through that with the parking authority. So we know that's going to take a big hit. Conventions as well, of course. The outlook for that hopefully is, I know that some people are still booking and planning to come, and we hope that, they're able to, and we hope that they're able to keep that schedule. So, but really, and two things I want to emphasize is how well it's run there. Mary, you're no stranger to city government, as we all know. But I really wanted to compliment you most of all on your work on the CAP project. I know that you personally went out and raised money and lobbied and went for the grants, along with PennDOT and some other partners. And I just love how we just went right through this pandemic and continued to build that. And I think hopefully someday soon, when we're all back downtown, it's just going to be fantastic. The access to the Hill District there is really a big game changer. So Mary, I want to thank you and Roseanne for your work on that. Oddly enough, this pandemic created a perfect situation to build down there, I feel. And that kind of, helped in a way where traffic and all the other problems that come along with that. And this park is going to be fantastic. And yes, we are going to, as a city of Pittsburgh, have to maintain it and, look after some things. But the features there, the things that were taken in consideration, I'll add with Councilman Lavelle and the folks from the Hill District and the Pittsburgh Penguins, it really is going to be a game changer. And if you could just speak to that at all, Mary, and where we're at in that project and when we actually going to be walking up and listening to live music at our amphitheater and all that stuff. Okay.
Well, thank you, Councilman. And as you know, everything that we do is really a team effort, and especially raising the money for the cap. So the cap was a $32 million is a $32 million project. The biggest chunk of the funding, 19 million, comes from federal highway money, Tiger money. And in addition to that, there are 12 other sources of funding that are going into that project. So there was a lot of effort by a lot of people to get that put together. And I also want to just reiterate and agree with you that we have a great staff at the authority, and they're very dedicated, and I appreciate all their hard work. And also the board, because the board is willing to get involved in things that are sometimes, as you say, a little contentious at times. So the board being willing to get involved and think through those things is really important. But the CAP project is moving along. And so again, by, I would say, September or October of next year, there should be a new 3.5 acre park in downtown Pittsburgh. And we're really excited about the amenities that we were able to add into the park. There are design features that were designed by local artists that through a national call for artists, we actually brought on some artists from the Hill District that had a connection to the history of the Hill. And so a lot of the design features that are built into the construction were designed through that process, and they have a cultural relationship to the history of that area. And so I think that's going to be exciting to see. There's stormwater retention that's built into the project, and just the fact that it's now creating green space above concrete area is a plus in terms of stormwater retention in the city and in the lower hill. So we think the project is going to be something that we can all be proud of.
No, I couldn't agree more. And besides that, we're actually doing things at the convention center with the rooftop, terrace and other projects going on there as well. So we've not slowed down at the SEA board. I'm proud to say I'm really happy to be a member. I expect to continue to be a board member for, I hope, the next 4 years at least. Mary, thanks for all you do. And one other thing I did want to point out is, we've made it in the convention center on I think it's Penn Avenue side. We have 4 or 5 businesses there, Jimmy John's, the bike. And we have gone out of our way to make sure that they are able to stay there, okay, in the way of rent forgiveness. Is that proper to say that, Mary?
Different with each one. We worked with them in terms of what their needs are and how best we could work with them and what kind of funding was available to them. So we are, and we're continuing to work with them to try to retain them as tenants there.
Right. Okay, so yeah, I just want to sum it up for me. I love the way you operate. I see the people who work under you, the team, especially Roseanne right next to you. But the entire team is just very professional. Things get done there. We really don't mess around. We have a great board filled with, different walks of life. And, so I look forward to working with you for years to come. With that, I will turn it back over to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And again, we have Councilman Wilson and Councilman Strasburger here. Councilman Wilson, do you have any questions for Stadium Authority? You house in your district many of the properties, right? Almost seems like almost all.
All of them, yeah. The ones on the north side, yeah. So they go over. Right now, my district goes over to the Heinz Field. Yes, I have some questions, and thank you for your time. I wanted to ask a specific question about. I'm looking at non-resident sport facility usage. Can you what type of usage is that? Is that a concert?
Is that, Bill, is he mentioning the usage fee that's paid by the entertainers and the sports figures?
Yes, the usage fee is the money that we receive from both entertainers and sports celebrities, the sports teams. So each, when Kenny Chesney comes, for example, we're supposed to get part of his salary that is being paid for that day, as well as the salaries of those folks working that show.
All right, that's a good one. The non-resident, that's what we classify as non-resident.
Correct.
So okay. And yeah, so on that note, the facilities are in District 1, but also the land that the Three River Stadium used to sit on. Can you expand on what plans or how one goes about the plans for the future? I have not had a briefing on what's to come in that area, and it'd be good to hear about what that process looks like.
And Councilman, you're right. I had promised to sit down with you and go through sort of the details of our authority and what we did, and then the pandemic hit, and I didn't do that, but I will promise to spend some time with you so that you're more aware of the details of what's happening over there. But that area is being developed through an option agreement, and it's a joint venture of the Pirates and the Steelers. So that agreement was put in place as part of the whole lease deal with those teams to keep them in Pittsburgh and to lease those facilities to them. So that agreement provides for timing and a master plan. And so we're getting close to the end of that one. There's probably about 4 parcels left to be developed. Right now, they're focused on the corner of Mazeroski Way and West General Robinson Street. So that corner across from sort of the main entrance of PNC Park. And you might have noticed if you've gone by in the last week or so that construction is starting there on a garage. And so as part of that parcel, it was divided into 3 parcels. One is intended to have a high-rise, an 8-story mixed-use building of office and residential. The other was to have this garage, and the third is a entertainment plaza that's right across from the main entrance at the corner there that will give them an opportunity to sort of program it before events. So the first thing that's being constructed is this garage. And then what we're really hoping for and what we're really excited about is this high rise, because that would be the first piece of housing that we get in that area. So the plan was in that area to have people there 24 hours a day. So we had entertainment that brought people there in the evening. Then we got office that brought people there in the day. And so then having housing there that has them there weekends and 24 hours was the next sort of piece of the plan that we were excited to get started over there. So that in a nutshell is where we are there, but I would be glad to sit down with you and lay out the maps and show you where we are with everything.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. So this is the stadium authority that they're the ones that vote on
Yes,
the agreements that you enter into.
on the North Shore, correct.
Yeah, yeah. And there is how many parcels left? 3?
It
That are
depends
undeveloped?
on how you cut them up, but probably after this 3 main parcels, yes.
Okay. And how does that work? Are they going to be sold? And then you all went, like, once these last 3 are sold or leased, or how does that work?
So a complication over there is that when Three Rivers Stadium was there, Alco Parking had the lease for all the parking around Three Rivers Stadium. And that lease actually runs until, I think, 2040, something like that. So what we have to do in order to develop those parcels is to buy Alco out of their lease rights. So what happens is the developer pays us for the land, and then we in turn buy Alco out of their lease rights so that the land is free and clear to be able to be developed.
And Arco is willing to do that?
They've been a good partner with us on this, yeah.
Well, parking's been a conversation just a few minutes ago, and during this pandemic, people aren't using parking as much, but obviously when there's all these stadiums around and people come from, so far out, I guess that's definitely still a thing down there. So, all right, well, I'll look forward to expanding on this conversation, but I just wanted to, get a sense of that. What's the common net area and who makes those decisions? Because there's not a neighborhood group around there that, that's directly part of that conversation. So, it would be, I believe the Allegheny, we call the Mexican War Street Society. They're the ones that will be maybe involved. Have you had much communication with them?
Over the years, we've done briefings with them. Some projects they're more interested in than others. So they had more to say when we were building the garage that we built 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay.
More traditional development.
All right.
Then it won't cause problems with them, I suppose. They've been more agreeable to.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Wilson. Councilwoman Strasburger, do you have any questions today?
Thank you. I don't have any questions. I just want to thank you for being here, and I've enjoyed listening to the other members' questions and your answers. And congratulations, I guess, are not in order yet, but I see congratulations on the progress so far on the CAP project. It's very exciting, and I get the news alerts every time that there's a new road closure, signifying more work being done there. So it's all very exciting. Congratulations on that, and thank you for all of your work.
Thank you.
Right, so I just have a few wrap-up questions and comments as well. I want to point out that the CAP project is, we talked about it as a new park, and it's definitely going to be connecting downtown to the 28 acres. But it's a part of a trend really that we've seen in other cities of either removing the kind of urban highways that created not crossable barriers in parts of downtowns, right? And other areas like ours, because ours was sunk, it's the 579, I think I'm saying that right.
Yes.
Trench. I don't know when that trench was built. Do you know?
Well, this happened in a lot of cities when the federal highway system was being put in the 50s. And so many cities had highways that went close to the center of the city, but not in the center of the city. And and cause some disruption in terms of being able to get from one neighborhood to another at that point. And so this happened here too.
So it's really, we can lump it in as part of the 1950s urban renewal. Sorry, that tore down the neighborhood buildings that were part of the Hill District that were just, if you look at the historic photos, if viewers haven't seen them before, that really it was just one continuous streetscape on a very, very small walkable scale, all the way to the downtown high-rise buildings. And so by building that 579 highway trench, it really just was an impassable barrier, right? You had to walk way out of your way to get across one of the pedestrian access bridges. And so this cap, it is kind of healing that scar in a way by covering it up and bringing back the elevation that's walkable, and expanding that. So we're really grateful and look forward to that being a positive step in making more sense of how to have people kind of repopulating this kind of vast car zone. It was the 30 acres, even when the Civic Arena was still there, still it was like acres. And I don't know how many acres was still surface parking, right? And so now we're going to be starting to make it human again.
Right,
Yeah,
that's the plan.
Yeah, I just didn't want that part to go unemphasized because I really think that's the remarkable part of the project. I'm looking forward to it. Can I also just ask if, since we just ended the discussion about like new garages are going to be built on the joint venture part that is the Steelers and the Pirates working together on your parcels. And then you own 2 garages also on the North Shore area. Do you coordinate with the parking authority? Like, is there any table where these different garage owners or regulators of parking, DOMI, parking authority, stadium authority, maybe even the private garage owners are talking about parking supply and demand? Should we convene that? Should we have a post agenda?
We coordinate with the parking authority in a lot of ways. We sort of compare notes on a lot of things, from maintenance to insurance to hours of operation to what are they seeing in terms of future demand and things like that. When our garages operate a little different than the parking authority garages, in that ours, we really coordinate with the major events on the North Shore. So in our garages, the entrance and the exits really have to take care of all the people leaving the game at the same time, kind of thing. And those uses factor into how do we also provide for commuter parking, and but yet still service the major facilities over there. So our focus sometimes is a little different, but we certainly coordinate with the parking authority a lot, and we're very appreciative of when they'll share knowledge with us that maybe we hadn't stumbled on yet.
Do you also have the restriction of having to be under state law first come, first serve, and not being able to lease out your spots when they're empty?
We don't have that requirement in our state law. We have requirements that go with tax exempt financing, which provides some restrictions, but not that direct restriction. And in fact, we were working to figure out how to provide the parking for this housing, this residential development that we hope will come next. But it's likely that this privately owned garage is the one that will provide that parking. It will be adjacent to that building.
Right, I see. We've, again, just for the viewers not thinking about parking on a daily basis, for example, as I mentioned in the Strip District, there are thousands of new units that are not rentable to the public, and not even really rentable amongst themselves. They can't, but some of them are nighttime use and some of them are daytime use, really. And so they're sitting either empty during the day or empty during the evening. And it's not efficient. It's not the best way to build a neighborhood, frankly, because you've just got too much space, dead space dedicated to parking garages. We've done a good job with that downtown, with requiring kind of retail space and preventing those kind of dead walls in kind of canyons that pedestrians have to walk past. But I still feel like we can do better by not overbuilding, which brings down costs. It brings down even commercial rent. I mentioned residential rent, but even commercial rent. I'm seeing a lot of new construction in my district having empty retail space. It's just too big. It's just too expensive.
Yes.
And the new construction has a high parking requirement attached to it. Whereas like all my 100-year-old storefronts that were built before there was parking requirement, all the little Main Street storefronts have better occupancy. They have lower costs, and they're smaller footprints in themselves. And so all the kind of tons of new shops and not just restaurants, but kind of neighborhood serving businesses are able to fill those locations, but can't afford the big retail storefronts that are brand new. So it really is a factor I think that we can do better at, but it isn't clear where that conversation happens. Does it happen at the planning department? Does it happen at DOMI, at the council office? There's lots of people with kind of stakes in that. We're all stakeholders in doing it better. But I think we're just going to have to work and figure out how to do that across all of our different purviews. It's really something that's been bothering me now for a few years. That representing a district that has had so much new construction is really struggling with filling needs for parking, but not overfilling other needs. So we need a better way to distribute the supply and demand. I think that maybe, could you wrap up for us and speak a little bit to just kind of recap what is going to be happening? I think the burning question for most people is like, what is going to be happening at the stadiums in 2021? What is happening with the big events like the Kenny Chesney, both the boon and the bane of city residents? It's good for the treasury, but not so good for living through hosting a Kenny Chesney concert. How are you kind of
If
predicting
only
that?
I could answer that, Right now, I think from a budgeting standpoint, we are expecting things to be fairly quiet until July 1st. So we're really expecting the first half of the year to be quiet. Then a gradual ramp up, as at least in the convention business, as people get more comfortable with coming back to conventions. And then even next year being a recovery year. So it could take a while, but I think we're going to be real well positioned to take advantage of people's desire to get back to business and to move quickly. And we've been working on the right protocol on sanitation and setting up events and how to use doors for entrance and different doors for exit, and how best to set up events like that, and putting together programs like that are ready when people are ready to start coming back.
Dr. Couture, I wasn't seeing that Councilwoman Cale Smith is actually on the line and has some questions, so I apologize. I almost left her out there, but I wanted to see, Councilwoman, are you still able to hear us? I kind of see you in the participant list, but it took me a while to get to you. I apologize.
No, thank you, Councilwoman. I am. Thank you. And I just want to thank you all for your work. And I just have a question. How does, we have the Riverhound Stadium on our side of town and in our district. And how would that become part of the authority?
Well, Well,
it something they have to request or something you have? I mean, because it's actually a conversation Rich Fitzgerald and I had, and he actually made the suggestion. I think it was almost 2 years ago. And I'm just wondering, what that process is.
I think over the years, people have had some conversations with it. It's not something that we've actively approached them in terms of taking that on.
And why is that?
Um,
I'm actually thinking they're the only ones actually playing right now.
yes, that's a good point. If we would take it, it would go off the tax rolls, and it then would be that the authority would take on some responsibilities, most likely in terms of capital maintenance, which we don't really have any financial wherewithal to take on any more responsibility like that. But that's sort of something that's beyond something that I could answer right now. If there is a desire for that to be looked at again, we could discuss it with the board and see what they would want to do.
Okay, so I'm going to say that I'm going to have a conversation with them and see what their interest is too. And then if it is something that they're interested in, I'll make sure I call you or the mayor or county exec, just to try to figure out what we have to do or what might need to be done. I don't know that they even have an interest, to be honest with you, but I know it was something that they brought up when they were expanding and they were looking at new facilities to grow and to do things. It was something that, and we want to make sure they stay in Pittsburgh, and yet they made some moves and they've expanded, but not within Pittsburgh, which is unfortunate. And I just want to say, anytime a Casciato is involved, I know it's going to be a good thing, because the Cales and the Casciato family go way back to the Oakland days. So thank you both for your work. Thank you all for your work.
Wonderful. Thank you, Councilwoman Smith.
Thank
Any
you.
other comments from members?
Councilwoman Gross, I just wanted to add one thing, please. So yeah, as far as the River Hounds go, Councilwoman Cale Smith said that she doesn't know if they would be interested. I don't know if Mary would be interested either. Is that safe to say? I mean, we're not looking to take on any other sports facilities / complexes, but would be willing to if they were in trouble for some reason. Is that safe to say?
Sure, we would be willing to look at it, but taking on responsibility that we don't have financial wherewithal to cover is something that we would, of course, be very careful about.
Right.
So I have to say something back to that. Okay. I'm just
Yes.
going to say, you take on responsibilities across the city of Pittsburgh. This is the only thing you have on this side of the city of Pittsburgh. And so I would say that I would hope that you would at least keep an open mind towards that.
And the other thing I wanted to add was, Councilwoman Gross, you couldn't be more right about that CAP project. The big, we can go on and on about the amenities that are going to come to that section, but it really is, that walk from our building, say, to PPG Paints Arena is a tough, dangerous walk, and just kind of a cruddy walk. So this just opens up the Lower Hill District to downtown and just says, come on in, So that really is the big prize, the access to that area from compared to now. So, and again, Mary, you said probably we're looking at September, October.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. And that's complete.
Yes.
Okay. Great. Okay. That's it for me.
Wonderful. I think that exhausts all of our questions. So I am going to look for, first tell the public that this public hearing recesses. We keep, every time we have a hearing, we recess it. So it's like one long continuous hearing. And we will be reconvening at 1:30 today for the Pittsburgh Water and Sewer Authority. And I believe Alcosan is at the same meeting. And then we also have meetings next week And I lost the notes in front of me. Bill, you can correct me if I'm wrong. We reconvene Monday, the 30th at 10 a.m. After Thanksgiving for the mayor's office is the first one that I see. Anyone on the line have that correct? Madam
Yeah,
Clerk? Or-
Yeah, yes, you do. And then we have the Office of Equity as well as the City Controller's Office, and then 1:30 with the URA.
So that's all Monday, the 30th.
Busy day Monday, yes.
That's all right. And right. And I don't believe we have any public meetings tomorrow, which is Wednesday, the 25th, because we're just a day before Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving to everyone. And I'm going to need a motion to recess, and then we'll reconvene at 1:30 today.
So
Motion
be
to
it.
recess. Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are recessed. Thank you all. See you later.